Evening. Unfortunately, the Office of Family and Community Engagement, their person that was scheduled to come had an emergency, so they're not here this evening. But one of the issues that we talked to them about recently is the fact that someone within the Office of Family and Community Engagement is designated to take calls from parents of children with special needs. As you know, SpedPac is a volunteer organization, and we get voicemails and emails that we try to respond to, but we're all volunteers and we all have our other responsibilities with respect to jobs and families as well. So I think it's great that there's someone on the BPS staff that they've now designated to take phone calls from parents. So the Office of Family and Community Engagement does have a person, and I don't know that you would technically call them an advocate for families, but they're answering questions that you may have having to do with IEPs and processes. We do have this evening our general issue forms that are on the table. If anybody's having a particular issue with their own child's IEP or in your own child's program that you need to have addressed by the Office of Special Education, please fill out those forms. We provide them to families so that instead of coming and just asking a question, whether it's myself or someone from special education taking questions, that doesn't really provide an opportunity to get the direct follow-up that you may need to bring your issue to resolution. So we created those forms so people can provide their contact information. John St. Amand scans those in, he sends them directly to John Beer, and then John Beer assigns each one of those forms to the appropriate person within his staff. And those are being tracked by his office. If you've filled out a form and you haven't gotten a follow-up or a call from their office, please let us know that. And I know that there was a story in the Globe last week about the district being behind in IEPs. So we've been communicating with special education about that issue. It happens to be an issue that's also involved in discussions with the union, so we don't have exact information to share about that, but John Beer said that as soon as he has information to share, that he will share that with SpedPac, and we'll send it out to our email list and put it on our website just to update people. But if you have a child who's on an IEP, and your IEP should have already occurred this year and has not, your IEP meeting, please fill out one of the issue forms so that we know who you are and know that your issue needs to be followed up on directly. And again, these issue forms are also available on our website. So if something comes up in between meetings when we have the forms here, you can just print it out yourself, or I think can you fill it out online, John? Yeah, you can fill it out online. And then also Kristen Mackey's been collecting all the emails, so if you call the SpedPac phone number, you leave an email message. Generally, Kristen's been handling the majority of those herself, but she'll also get in contact with the people in special education to follow up directly, because as SpedPac, it's really our role to sort of help facilitate your communicating with the appropriate people within BPS. Unfortunately, since it's not our full-time position, we can't advocate on behalf of individual families and do sort of a case management, but what we can do is identify what your issue is, probably give you a little bit of guidance with regard to what the particular issue is, but also then to connect you with the right person within BPS who should be able to resolve that issue for your family. So I think it's important because a lot of times within a big system, you have an issue, but you don't know who to call, or you start calling, and it's sort of like a dialing for dollars. It's like, no, you need to call this place, you need to call that. So it's helpful to know this is the right person, because special education did go through a complete reorganization last year. So we have new assistant directors, we have new supervisors. Their position is similar to what the former APD position was, and the SPED coordinators, which are different from but similar in some ways to the previous ETF positions. They've all been, those are all recent hires and new reconfigurations. So it's important that you know who your school-based person is in terms of your SPED coordinator, but then obviously if you have an issue with your IEP, if you have an issue with compliance with your IEP, or if you have an issue of dispute and you want to follow it up, or if there's just a problem going on with your child's individual program, you want to be able to connect with the right person within BPS. So that's what we're trying to do for people, and we're facilitating that information getting from one place to another through these forms. and then also following up directly with John's staff. In addition, John and I meet with John Beer every Tuesday morning. It's not an in-person meeting, it's a conference call. It's at 8:30 in the morning. So if there's particular issues that we need to bring to John's attention, we get an opportunity to do it at that time and then to follow up on it. So we've been discussing this issue of, the need to get IEPs done. It's required by law that IEPs be reviewed annually and that IEPs be issued to parents within 2 weeks of the IEP meeting. That also means that you got a team summary sheet at the IEP meeting. And you don't have to agree to that. There's a number of different advisories that are put out by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. One of them relates to parents' responses to the IEP and what you should get when you're leaving the IEP meeting. There's one on the autism spectrum law with regard to what the team's required to address. There's another, there's several ones that I sort of utilize on a frequent basis, but we have limited resources with regard to being able to print everything out and bring it here to you tonight. We did bring a number of different handouts, so John's going to post all of those on our website. And if you don't have access to the internet, please just let us know. I'm happy to print them out and send them to you if you can't access them otherwise. But I like to have it online because it's sort of like if you print it out, I don't know about you guys, but then I constantly misplace it. So if I keep it online and I put it as one of my favorites, then I can jump over and look at it frequently. Otherwise, it's harder to put my hands on. So the information that we brought tonight with regards to special education in the district is that we brought an update on the extended school year services for the summer of 2012. That was something that people need to know about. We're obviously at the end of April. We want people to have notice about what those services are and where those programs are going to be located. And obviously it's helpful for parents in terms of planning purposes to have that information well before the summer starts so that you know when the program is going to be in session, what the locations are of those programs, and you can start talking to your SPED coordinator if you have a particular interest in one of those locations. That's something to start exploring. But now at least this year we have that information in advance, and we wanted to bring that so that people know what's going on with it. One of the other issues that was brought up to us is that a lot of people entering the system or who are going to be entering the system really don't know much about SpedPac and don't really have much information on what is the process when you're first entering into BPS. So there's a separate handout for turning 3. I created it because I used to do a lot of trainings for the Federation for Children with Special Needs, and it was just, I tried to put in a small handout what I thought was important information to know. So whether this is something that you think is helpful to you, or if you know families in your neighborhood, or people that have younger children that are going to be coming into BPS, please let them know about SpedPac and sort of, either provide this to them. These will also be on our website. So, we just want to provide people with information because it is a little daunting to go from early intervention and come into a big school system and sort of how to navigate that process and what exactly that process should entail. So it's just to try to be helpful in that regard. Hi.
That's an extended school year program. Do you know when we'll get notices of the schools that we assigned to? Do you know the hours?
I think the hours vary by location. I don't have that specific information. This is the most recent information that we got, but we can certainly follow up with John Beer and ask him for the locations, the times at each location, and when the assignments will be sent out.
If it's like last year, it'll be in May, or I think I remember it being in May.
I think it was much later than it should have been last year because there was an issue with regard to the locations. They weren't secured as early as we would want them to be because there's some of the schools house community programs and some of them house the extended year in terms of not special education but additional tutoring services, and there was some difficulty coordinating that with the special ed programs. But so because we encountered that last year, we approached it beginning of this school year and said we want to secure our locations early on. We don't want to be running into that because since we weren't able to secure the locations in an early enough time, that impacted arranging transportation because they didn't know where the transportation was going to be needed. So hopefully we've been more proactive and had better results this year in terms of getting that information in a more timely fashion. So we will certainly ask them to get those assignments out as soon as possible. But I would also say that it's something that it's not, you know, just because your child goes to one particular school doesn't mean they have to go to one of those specific locations. Some of them may be disability specific, but some of them may not be. So I would say to parents, if there's a certain location that you would prefer for your child, then that's something to approach your SPED coordinator about and request it. You know, I don't think you should be prevented from doing that, you know. So again, it was just an effort to get the information out earlier this year. So